1. Everyone once laughed at Jaguar Wright. They labeled her as crazy. They said she was bitter. They claimed she was overreaching. But now, with federal files coming out and millions of documents being made public, people aren't laughing anymore. It all started when names from the Epstein files began resurfacing, big, powerful names. Jaguar has long said that the entertainment world and the billionaire elite are deeply intertwined and seriously corrupt. Now, it seems her claims are being validated. One particular point Jaguar has emphasized after these file releases is the striking similarity between Epstein and Shawn Combs, better known as Diddy.
Talk about Epstein and to talk about Diddy and to not see them as the same situation. Like, there's so many intersections between Epstein and Diddy that we're not even paying attention to. And people who were regulars in the Epstein
moved through wealth, influence, private jets, and elite social circles. Diddy moved through music, fashion, and the influential rooms of Hollywood. Jaguar's point is that Diddy was not some lone actor. He belonged to a wider system. And if Epstein enjoyed protection for years, then who else might have been shielded?
That there's nothing about Naomi Campbell really coming forward yet. I'm surprised. I'm like bitterly surprised. Her time.
Yeah, they said her name was on the list like the most as far as like flight records.
Yeah.
She was on a lot of flights.
A lot of flights.
You mentioned
also Diddy's ex-girlfriend.
Hey.
Isn't that funny?
What a tiny world. That alone doesn't prove any misconduct, but it certainly raises questions. Jaguar points out that the quiet surrounding certain names is revealing. Why do some people make front-page headlines while others barely receive a mention?
You see that there's some people on the list that is no longer with us. David Stern, the NBA commissioner, he's no longer with us. Michael Jackson, his name was on this list.
Odd. That was odd too. Chris Tucker showed up. Like a lot of people showed up. But the funny thing is it's who they're putting up, what they're pushing forward, what they're holding back on. The Shawn Carter references, the Jay-Z references are very interesting on so many levels. Because it's being mentioned from different foyers, like from different aspects.
Sometimes a name comes up due to contact details or social closeness, but the network of connections is enormous, and that's what makes this more than just one person. Elon Musk was rumored to have links discussed in the wider talks around the files. Bill Gates has already acknowledged meeting Epstein in the past.
To himself back in July of 2013, and in it he addressed Bill Gates, accusing him of recently disregarding their friendship or whatever twisted relationship they had. He also mentioned Gates allegedly asking him to delete some past communications. And when it's past communications with Jeffrey Epstein, the reason why you'd want them to be deleted is easy to speculate about. Here is from the draft email, this section. To add insult to the injury, them implore me to please delete the emails regarding your STD, your request that I provide you antibiotics that you can surreptitiously give to Melinda, and the description of your penis. And so sometimes these emails are hard to understand or to follow from Jeffrey Epstein because he wrote like an absolute illiterate madman. I don't know entirely why one of the richest men in the world would need antibiotics to be provided by Jeffrey Epstein.
I do.
Okay, well, they're referencing something there. There was also a draft email that Epstein appeared to be writing on behalf of Gates' longtime science advisor, Boris Nikolic, about his intent to leave the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. This is from July of 2013. Epstein wrote in his voice, by the way, for this. During the past few weeks, I have been caught up in a severe marital dispute between Melinda and Bill. In my role as his right hand, I have been asked on multiple occasions and in hindsight wrongly acquiesced into participating in things that have ranged from the morally inappropriate to the ethically unsound, and have been repeatedly asked to do other things that get near and potentially over the line into the illegal. From helping Bill to get drugs in order to deal with consequences of with Russian girls, to facilitating his illicit trysts with married women, to being asked to provide Adderall for bridge tournaments, I feel I owe it to my friends and future colleagues to admit a moral failure, to ask forgiveness, and to move on. with my life.
This was not an accident. This was not like, oh, golly gee, here's the wild guy. Oh, Jeffrey Epstein. Oh, yeah, he's the pedo that all the powerful people randomly know about and like and constantly go to. And he writes blackmail emails to them. And he brags about how he's constantly helping the Israelis with their spies and their ex-presidents. And we can't put 2 and 2 together? No, I put it together, it's 4. So mainstream media can tell you it's 5 or 0, but they're giant liars. Epstein was clearly part of Israel's operations here, and they're clearly were trying to blackmail the most powerful people.
Mainstream media can present a version of events as definitive, but many critics argue that important details are often left out. Some observers have claimed that Epstein may have been connected to intelligence networks and that powerful figures could have been vulnerable to blackmail. These were not minor players, they were billionaires, global influencers, and men whose choices shape entire economies. That's the core of the argument. When power reaches that scale, the rules may no longer seem ordinary. Then there's perhaps the greatest mystery of all, Epstein's death. Officially, he died by suicide in jail. Yet the missing surveillance footage, malfunctioning cameras, and guards who reportedly fell asleep left many unconvinced. In fact, one former inmate from the same facility claimed it would have been nearly impossible for Epstein to take his own life under those conditions.
I'm joined now by someone, and this is interesting, with intimate knowledge of the very jail cell Epstein died in. Michael Francis, he was a capo for the Colombo crime family in the 1980s. He served time in the exact cell where Epstein was later held. Michael, welcome back to the program. Tell us about that cell, and what do you make of these revelations that there is a minute missing from the surveillance video, Michael?
Well, listen, I spent 7 months on that tier and in those cells. And the first thing I have to say, there's no way you are able to commit suicide. There's just no way. There's no way to hang yourself. There's nothing from the ceiling. There's nothing from the bed. You'd have to be a midget and work really hard to try to hang yourself. And I don't think you can accomplish it at that point. As far as the cameras being off, I haven't experienced that. I did 8 years in prison. And I haven't experienced cameras being broken in the perfect storm of correctional officers not walking those cells. They walk in and they look in on you all the time. As a matter of fact, sometimes it's embarrassing to go to the toilet because they're walking past you and looking in the cell constantly. So I've said this from day one. I do not believe it was suicide. I can't talk about what happened to him, but I don't believe it was a suicide, because you just couldn't physically do it. It would be almost impossible to do it. So that's number one.
It must be interesting, Michael, when you look at the video, though, it must be interesting because you know the area. I mean, we all look at this and it just looks like a prison, but this must look very familiar to you.
Absolutely, very familiar. And the fact that a minute is missing, look, everything around this guy, I just did a very deep dive into him, which I'll be releasing on my platform in the next several days. Look, there's no way that this person operated alone. Look, they have the videos. Alan Dershowitz recently said that he saw the client list, but because there's people that he can't, because he's an attorney, he can't, reveal what he saw. But he said he saw the client list. He's demanding that it be released. To think that there's no flight logs, that there's no client list, that the thousands of recordings that they had, because I found out for sure that he had cameras on every bedroom, recording everything, and all of a sudden all of it is gone. I mean, none of this makes.
Was it suicide, or was it something else? Is the full truth even known to the public? No one seems to have clear answers. And that uncertainty is what feeds the larger suspicion. If Epstein was silenced to prevent further exposure, what might that mean for others connected to him? Could similar situations happen again? Jaguar doesn't claim to have proof of everything, but she highlights patterns. Protection, delays, files kept secret for years, and powerful men continuing business as usual. For a long time, she was dismissed. But now, federal investigations, released documents, and increasing public scrutiny are forcing people to re-examine everything. Maybe she wasn't shouting into the void. Maybe she was simply ahead of her time. And if authorities truly reveal how deep the connections run, if Diddy really operated within the same elite protection network Epstein used, this story could implicate some very big names. One person facing such scrutiny recently is Les Wexner, brought in for questioning by the House Oversight Committee. Curiously, however, Les's lawyer became so frustrated with his approach to the investigation that he allegedly threatened his own life during the meeting.
Wexner, one of the closest known benefactors of Jeffrey Epstein, says he was, quote, naive, foolish, and gullible for trusting the late convicted offender. The 88-year-old testified before members of the House Oversight Committee in a closed-door deposition yesterday. He previously led the former parent company of Victoria's Secret and hired Epstein to manage his money in the mid-1980s. In his prepared opening statement, Wexner said he cut ties with Epstein shortly after his arrest in late 2006, but the latest release of Epstein files show the two stayed in touch past then. In her book, Selling Sexy, Victoria's Secret and the Unraveling of an American Icon, CBS News contributor and Puck fashion correspondent Lauren Sherman discusses Wexner's years-long relationship with Epstein, and Lauren joins us now. So tell us more about their relationship.
So Epstein was advising Wexner since the early 80s. He was introduced to him by the guys at Bear Stearns. He was vetted by him. He was a casual advisor. And then by the early 1990s, Wexner actually granted him power of attorney, which we all know is a very rare thing to do with a financial advisor. And he had that until 2007 when all these accusations and Epstein started to get into really big trouble. Wexner has tried to remove himself from the Epstein narrative, but the reality is he made Epstein very rich. And so the two men have been intertwined and have affected Wexner's legacy as an entrepreneur and a person who really built a lot of Ohio over the last 40 years.
An inventory. But then there was, I hired a lady to be like the house manager who had run the U.S. Embassy in Rome. And she said, yeah, I know how to do this. And I said, well, why don't we keep inventories of stuff? And she said, well, yeah, I could do that. So she did that as kind of a puny example, but I wouldn't have had the idea. But then all the things were inventoried. That wasn't work for me or Jeffrey. It was just regularly done.
Answer not the question. 5 words, okay? What's most striking about all of this is that the Epstein and Diddy cover-ups don't appear to be spontaneous. It seems whoever is orchestrating things has been protecting themselves and planning for a long time, because in July 2025, the U.S. Department of Justice abruptly fired a federal prosecutor who had worked on cases involving Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and Diddy. Her name was Maureen Comey, and no clear explanation or detailed statement was provided. She was simply removed from her position.